Hi there, this is S.J. Thomason with Christian-Apologist.com. Today I'm going to talk about biological determinism and free will. Biological determinism refers to the belief that human behavior is determined by our genetic predispositions rather than by our social or environmental circumstances. This is a position which is endorsed by many atheists who like to use biological determinism to claim that they have no free will. Case in point is Sam Harris. In his book, The Moral Landscape, he says, and I quote, "All of our behavior can be traced to biological events about which we have no conscious knowledge. This has always suggested that free will is an illusion. For instance, the physiologist Benjamin Libet famously demonstrated that activity in the brain's motor regions can be detected some 350 milliseconds before a person feels he has decided to move. Another lab recently used fMRI data to show that some conscious decisions can be predicted up to 10 seconds before they enter awareness, long before the preparatory motor activity detected by Libet. Clearly, findings of this kind are difficult to reconcile with the sense that one is the conscious source of one's actions. Notice that distinction between higher and lower systems in the brain gets us nowhere, for I no more initiate events in executive regions of my prefrontal cortex than I cause the creaturely outbursts of my limbic system. The truth seems inescapable. I, as the subject of my experience, cannot know what I will think or do until a thought or intention arises, and thoughts and intentions are caused by physical events and mental stirrings of which I am not aware." I came upon this video by Rationality Rules that actually expands on some of these notions that Sam Harris has explained in his book. Rationality Rules is also called Stephen Woodford, and this particular video has over 200,000 views, which I find incredible. So anyway, let's go ahead and listen to what Stephen Woodford has to say.
The myth is that determinism is another word for fatalism, which is the assertion that absolutely everything is predetermined, and that therefore absolutely everything is inevitable. The truth, however, is that while many fatalists call themselves determinists, and hence exacerbate this myth, determinism is merely the assertion that human consciousness is predetermined. It makes no claim whatsoever about the rest of the universe. Now, I grant that this distinction might seem pedantic, but it's not. It's extremely important, and the reason for this is because many people are convinced that various studies in quantum mechanics have demonstrated that the quantum world is random, and that therefore determinism is false. But with the definition clearly presented on screen, I'm sure you can see the issue here. Even if the quantum world is non-deterministic, this would not invalidate determinism. Sure, it would invalidate fatalism, but it would not invalidate determinism. Anyhow, with this myth now thoroughly addressed, let's look at what neuroscience has to say. In 1983, the pioneering scientist, Benjamin Libet, conducted a study in which he wired up subjects to an EEG machine to measure their brain activity. He then put a timer in front of them, asked them to consciously decide to perform a hand movement, perform the hand movement, and then report the exact time that they had made a conscious decision. And the results were extremely fascinating. He found that the onset of cerebral activity clearly preceded by several hundred milliseconds the reported time of conscious intention to act. Or in other words, that the subject's brain had initiated the movement long before the subject had consciously made the decision to move. Now, while this study was groundbreaking in the fact that it suggested that our consciousness is entirely determined and that therefore free will is an illusion, it didn't prove it, because it left unaddressed a few disputable concerns. Namely, that the brain activity didn't predict a specific outcome of a choice, and that the delay was only a few hundred milliseconds, which means that this simply could have been due to latency. But in 2008, in response to these criticisms, Chun Sion-soon conducted a similar experiment using an fMRI machine, in which he asked subjects to freely choose between, and then immediately press, one of two buttons that were operated by the subject's left and right index fingers. And his results were truly remarkable. He found that the outcome of a decision can be encoded in brain activity of prefrontal and parietal cortex up to 10 seconds before it enters awareness. 10 seconds. And he went on to conclude that this delay presumably reflects the operation of a network of high-level control areas that begin to prepare an upcoming decision long before it enters awareness. Now, if Libet's experiment poked free will, Soon's drop-kicked it. Because if we can accurately predict what you're going to do before you've even made a conscious decision, then your consciousness is evidently not free, and therefore your conscious decisions are not free. Or to put it another way, because your consciousness is predetermined, your free will is an illusion. You simply do not have the freedom that you think you have. You feel, for example, like you've chosen to listen to me right now, and that at any moment you can choose to stop. The problem, however, is that science is telling us, loud and clear and unequivocally, that while our feelings of free will are real, free will itself is an illusion.
Let's not jump to conclusions so quickly, Mr. Woodford. I will demonstrate why biological determinism is faulty, using that to explain our free will. Issues of free will should focus on the sorts of choices that are unstructured, non-routine, and complex, such as how we decide to attend to our relationship with God and our relationship with our fellow human beings. Issues of free will should devote far less attention to routine, structured, pre-programmed decisions in our brains, such as the way our motor skills operate when we walk, blink, talk, eat, or do other routine tasks. The vast majority of the thousands of decisions we make each day are non-conscious decisions based on routine, low-level tasks. Yet these issues are of little relevance or importance when answering whether we have free will. Sadly, the distinction between non-routine and routine, structured and unstructured, and simple and complex choices is often blurred for adherents to biological determinism, despite the fact the Libet experiments they used to support their notions were based on very simple tasks. In fact, the Soon experiment that was mentioned by Mr. Woodford also is based on very simple tasks. In that experiment, subjects were asked to fixate on a center of a screen where a stream of letters was presented. When they felt the urge, they were asked to push one of two buttons. Then they were taken to another screen where they were prompted to recall the letter they picked and to push a second button. Again, very simplistic. Steve Taylor in 2017 summed up this research as follows. He's speaking of the Libet studies. In the Libet experiments, participants were asked to press a button and flex their wrists while EEG electrodes attached to their heads monitored their brain activity. Participants' brains registered activity which was unconscious to the participants before they made conscious decisions. Libet referred to this activity as readiness potential. He interpreted that to mean that decisions were first made within participants' brains before they were conscious of such decisions. Yet though his experiments have become famous and atheists have enthusiastically cited his research to claim we have no free will, numerous scholars have refuted the Libet studies. Scholars have questioned whether the activity in the brain is associated with the decision to move or even not move. They have also questioned whether the particular area of the brain in which the activity occurred, the supplementary motor area, is active when performing tasks. The supplementary motor area is usually active while imaging activities, not while performing them. Quote from Taylor, as the philosopher Alfred North Whitehead pointed out ironically, scientists animated by the purpose of proving themselves purposeless constitute an interesting subject for study, end quote. In my view, this is connected to the general nihilism of our culture, and I'm quoting Taylor again, that was Whitehead's quote. The collapse of values, which has followed from materialistic science. Such absurd views could only arise and make any kind of sense amidst the climate of meaninglessness and confusion that scientific materialism has given rise to. Furthermore, even Benjamin Libet admitted that although our minds make us lean towards particular simple decisions, we can choose to reject those decisions during the few seconds after our mind sends signals to us. In other words, he refuted his own assertions. Seifert examined Libet's findings in the context of philosophy and concluded as follows, and I will quote, and this is from 2011 in an academic study, to have shown that Libet in no way has disproven that human persons can indeed act freely and, in so acting, truly initiate a chain of causal processes that are not caused by preceding brain events, allows us to face and to overcome fully the huge challenge Libet poses to free will. The results of his experiments do not disprove free will or justify only the free will of vetoing, but instead both his own test results, when interpreted in the light of logic and a more adequate philosophy of persons and causes and their liberation from the many philosophical equivocations, limitations, and errors he associates with their interpretation, confirm that we are endowed with free will. and that any determinist theory that denies free will, whether compatibilist or incompatibilist, soft or hard, is wrong. So let's not come to any nonsense about us not having free will. We have free will. The Lord has blessed us with that, thankfully. I hope you'll like and subscribe and choose to come again. You have free will, make that choice. I also hope that you will invite your friends to come again and to come to my channel. You can find me at christian-apologist.com. You can also find me on Twitter at LEAD1225. Thank you again.